Look, right, I don't want to get into a big heavy argument about this. Evening everybody, British PT here. It's a little bit later in the day, I'm not eating this time. So I thought I'd make a follow-up video to the video I made earlier on today. Because I thought the way forward from a response to the video that I made is to do the responsible thing and further my research that I'd already done in a little bit more detail and go down another route. And has my opinion of Tommy Robinson changed? Yes, it has. It has changed. The Tommy Robinson I knew is Tommy Robinson that ran and worked with the EDL. And I'm old enough to remember what the EDL were doing, what they did, and who was involved in the EDL. And like I said, I already had first and second hand experience of people that were involved with the EDL, and I didn't like them. And I associated their leader as someone, rightly or wrongly, that meets with their point of view. In response to some of the comments that were made earlier on, I did do some research, and off my own back I did some more research. And I think in some ways I was trying to find a way to think, how is it that Tommy Robinson has gained such support that he has in the last couple of months, especially? Because the Tommy Robinson I knew was existing around 2010, 12, 13, after the Lee Rigby thing, etc. And I didn't like what I was hearing him preaching, because, in my opinion, he was preaching hate. Now, I am going to be clear on this. The Tommy Robinson I've been hearing of in the last 3 months, 2 or 3 months, has been very different to what I was hearing about when he was involved in the EDL. And I'll tell you what changed my opinion of him especially. He is still using, in my opinion, right-wing tactics. I will acknowledge and say that they're not far right-wing, but they are definitely right-wing tactics. To be clear, I don't see myself as a lefty. I'm not a leftist, and if I am a leftist, I'm pretty fucking central on the left. You know, I don't feel I'm a particularly liberal person any more than it is necessary to be. I feel I'm relatively central, but I'm sure people will disagree with me. It's a point of, you know, it's a subjective opinion at the end of the day. I'll tell you what I liked about Tommy Robinson, which has changed my opinion of him slightly. He sat down with Imam Tawhidi, the Imam of Peace, to open a dialogue, and he presented his concerns about Islam to him and entered into a discussion. Now, Tommy Robinson's been very clever in the way that he's presented himself and his opinions to the public, and I can't work out if it's intentional or not, because it seems to me that people are rallying behind him who believe things that I don't agree with. But he's never actually said the things that people think he does. But he still gets the support of those that believe it. I don't know if that makes any sense. But he will not say racist things. But he seems to get a lot of support from people that have, in my opinion, more racist opinions, which is concerning. Now, I watched the video of the speech that the UK wanted banned, that the chap from Belgium, a right-wing group, and it was very inspiring. It was inspiring. As a British bloke defending my culture, yeah, it rallied me up a bit. I'm not going to lie, it was good. But the problem you get when you start talking about restricting certain types of practice of religion is you are very close to impinging the freedoms that you are exercising by that declaration. Meaning, if you are saying, it is my freedom of speech to say I do not like this religious practice, and then go so far as to say we should ban certain religious practices, you're becoming very close to the line of limiting that freedom of speech. Now, I'm not denying that Tommy Robinson's freedoms have been restricted, but I'm also not denying that ain't with good reason. Now, it's not my place to say at this stage what I feel his intentions were, because I'm not going to lie, I'm still trying to work it out for myself. I will say he's very clever. There's no denying that. He's a very clever bloke. And if I look at the facts that I could see the good, he has sat down with members of the Islamic community and entered into a discussion. I believe it's with the intention on addressing the issues that he feels threatened or is threatening British culture. I do believe we do need a level of integration. We do need to be able to live alongside one another without there being a threat of something taken over. And I am heavily still in the mindset that a lot of this psychology comes down to a psychology of fear. Which is evident in the insults that have been chucked my fucking way. People calling me a fucking cuck. Which really kind of indicates what your point of view is, because a cuckold is someone who doesn't mind their wife being fucked, or actually quite enjoys watching their wife being fucked by particularly men of colour. Well, that doesn't particularly interest me. It's not something I get off on. Quite the opposite, actually. I wouldn't want any bloke, black or otherwise, or Asian or whatever, going near my wife. I wouldn't accept it. I wouldn't acknowledge it. And if it did happen, well, then that would be the end of my marriage, wouldn't it? So I don't really understand the consequence behind what you're saying. I understand the reference, but that's not who I am, I'm afraid. At the end of the day, if that's what happened in my marriage, then I wouldn't be in my fucking marriage anymore. Anyway, moving away from me specifically, in response to those efforts to insult me personally, has my opinion of Tommy Robinson changed? Yes, it has. Do I think he's a racist? He hasn't presented any arguments that actually present him as a racist. But that doesn't mean he isn't one. But he certainly hasn't implicated himself as one. When he did some actions alongside the EDL, yeah, there were certain elements in what was being said at EDL marches that unfortunately he got tarnished with. And that's something he needed to accept. If you run, if you run it within that crowd, you're going to get tarnished with the same brush. Is there an issue in Pakistani culture in terms of sex crimes? Yes, there is. Is that an Islamic problem? Potentially. Yeah, same community. Does it need to be addressed? Absolutely. One of the things that's happened near where I live is we've actually engaged members of our community, the Islamic community, that are on the softer side of the Islamic culture, have engaged with, the more involved culture, and have become involved in discussions with non-Muslims. And this is not to turn us Muslim or for us to convert them from Islam. It's just to enter into a negotiation so we have a level of understanding. I understand my boundary, you understand your boundary, and we kind of don't fuck with each other. It's kind of how it works. And if I'm being honest, I think this whole movement is very important. I do think freedom of speech is important, but I do not think freedom of speech should be inciting hatred on either side of the fence. And that's really what this comes down to. And this really brings me to the conclusion that I wanted to make about this video, and it'll be the reason why there won't be a follow-up to this video, is because I actually watched my video back earlier, and I wasn't particularly proud of what I was saying, because I felt it was inciting hatred. I don't think it was actually productive. I let emotions get the better of me, and it's easily done. And it ain't the right thing to fucking do. It's not. I didn't present myself in the same way. I was arrogant about the way that I did it. A few people picked up on it, and subconsciously I was trying to work out, why are you picking at that? Well, it's true. I was being fucking arrogant. I wanted to dare people to challenge me, which I did. But it wasn't productive. It was not constructive. It did not present the argument in the best light, because I let emotions get the better of me. And I think the problem is, more often than not, that's what happens. And the mutual respect that I have now found, and it is short-lived, but it is there, for Tommy Robinson, is that he has actually engaged with the Islamic community and engaged in a discussion. And that is what I think needs to be done. If he is setting that example, he can sit down with an imam, a religious voice of Islam, and have a decent discussion about the problems that are facing their culture and threatening our culture, and you can enter a dialogue. That is the beginning of the solution. That is what needs to happen. And with that in mind, that's why I made this video. So I would like to publicly retract my claims that Tommy Robinson is a racist, because I can't prove he is. I also acknowledge that Islam is not a race, it's a religion. I don't agree with everything he says, and I do believe it was right that he was arrested because he was in breach of court, contempt of court. He shouldn't have been filming a live trial. Whether a verdict was made or not, he shouldn't have been filming there. Bottom line. I do hope that he can continue to have a voice, but I think it's very dangerous when you have a voice that he has that inspires so many racists. Now, I'm not saying he's a racist, but he fucking inspires them, and that is not a good thing. You know, he's talking about a right-wing overhaul. If that's what's going to happen, that's going to happen. I'm not going to line myself left or right. That's not what I do. I just give the opinions of where I feel is fair. I try and stick in the middle as best I can. I'm not a fucking Liberal Democrat. I'm just trying to find that middle ground. And if that makes me a Liberal Democrat, then fine, label me as a fucking Liberal Democrat. But that's why I wanted to make this video, because I overstepped the mark earlier, and that ain't the way forward. And at the end of the day, if Tommy Robinson, who was the former head of the EDL, a strong critic of Islam, and I do believe he has Islamophobic tendencies, I don't think you disagree with me on that, and an imam from Islam can sit down and have a discussion, civilised discussion, why the fuck can't the rest of us? And that's why I made this second video. Anyway, I think the important thing is to keep the discussion alive. I'm going to bow out at this point. I'm not pushing out. I'm not stepping away. I have changed my opinion of Tommy Robinson. I don't agree with him. But what I will say is it's important for us to maintain a dialogue on both sides of the fence. It's important for us to talk about it. I do respect freedom of speech. But we cannot have a hate voice or a representative that people are going to misinterpret as a hate voice, inciting hatred. You can't control people like that, but it would not be responsible for that to be the case, and I don't know what the answer is. It's a very, very, very tough problem. I don't know. There's definitely a lot of frustration on the right side. That's all I will say. Anyway, thank you very much for watching my second video. British PT. I still don't drink tea. And I might go eat a Cornish pasty now. Alright guys, as I said last time, keep the discussion alive. Peace.
Enjoy the rain and don't be too down. Bye.